Hello, my name is Mohammed Bawabeid. I'm the Executive Director of the Muslim Resource Center for Social Support Integration in London, Ontario. I've been working for almost 30 years now addressing family violence in collectivist communities and trying really to come up with innovative strategies to respond to family violence in within collectivist cultural context. For many years now, I have been working as a broker between the Muslim community and Arab community, as well as anti-violence agencies in London, Ontario. And throughout this experience, I have been able to develop with a team that has been working with us at the Muslim Resource Center, a culturally integrative model to respond to family violence. And the culturally integrative family safety response model is actually about creating space for culturally based organization to be part of the solution in situations of family violence in particular. That would allow actually service providers to better understand the cultural context of families impacted by family violence within collectivist communities, but also it would allow to create a partnership with cultural communities or diverse communities to be part of the solution and not just really waiting until a situation of violence escalate and result to tragedies. So at the same time, the culturally integrated family safety response actually will train service providers to understand how they assess risk of family violence in a context of migration and culture. We're very happy that we have been working with the Arab Culture Center in Fredericton and Dr. Cathy Hotman at the University of New Brunswick to establish a new initiative that brings the Arab and Muslim community with mainstream service providers or public services to work together to address family violence in the Muslim and Arab communities. And this project actually based on the culturally integrative model, and it allows, as I said, really, it's about really raising awareness within the Arab and Muslim community on family violence issues, but also helping public services to better understand how to work with Muslim and Arab women and families impacted by domestic violence effectively and also in a culturally meaningful manner. One of the challenges that Muslim and Arab families are facing when they face family violence, the fact that they don't trust the system, mainstream or public services, because family violence is considered as a family conflict, as a private issue. In many situations, many people don't believe in professional help or support. And that would put really women in particular at risk because they are not really asking for outside help. And what we really need to consider when we work with families or in particular women impacted by domestic violence or intimate partner violence, to understand traditional roles within the family. And also really to understand that the situation that the woman would go through may be fear of losing support of the community or maybe extended family if she would go and ask for outside help. So it's really important to keep women safe, but also at the same time engage with the family. Usually you will have someone at least within the family that you can talk with, or maybe within the community. I would really recommend to identify community members who can be really supporter, an advocate on behalf of this woman, and also like a bridge between the woman who needs help as well as the service providers. At the same time, I really also recommend to slow down the process. I know if there is imminent risk, so you have to act fast, and maybe you can maybe make some kind of intrusive intervention. But I think, if we slow down the process and step back a little bit, we will have enough room to maybe negotiate with different key players in the community to provide more support for the woman, but without alienating the family. That's really sometimes what would create more tension and lead to more problems, not just really for the family, but also really for the woman. So I think it's important for us to understand what are really the lived reality, the context of the women that we are serving in these communities. For domestic violence outreach worker, here are the things that you should really consider working with Muslim women or maybe Muslim and Arab women impacted by domestic violence. One thing to consider to differentiate between the nuclear family that is existing within Western societies, comparing with the extended family, which really means a woman who is coming from Muslim or Arab background, coming from a collectivist background, which really means it's the connection with the extended family, sometimes even the family back home or part of the family back home. So before you go and approach the woman or maybe the family, you need to take into account that the context of the family structure is different. So that's something that you take into account. The second thing, you should really look also into ask the woman, who, for example, within the extended family, that could be maybe supportive. Sometimes really very helpful to connect with someone in the family or in the extended family, but sometimes it could be risk and dangerous. But it's important to ask, and the woman will tell you what kind of support they need. Sometimes maybe even connecting with someone in their country of origin as a support. I'm saying that because most of the challenges that mainstream service providers would face working with Muslim and Arab women in particular, they don't maybe appreciate their fear of losing connection with their community if they would go out, if they share their stories regarding the abuse that they're experiencing. So it's important really to understand what are the dilemma that they go through, and then really trying to understand where they are at and provide the support that they need, and not necessarily project what you think necessarily they need. Just one thing to really, to make sure it's really correctly understood. I'm talking now in the context of early intervention, because we have enough room when the woman is safe. Of course, as I said at the beginning, if there is imminent risk, so you need to do what you need to do to make sure that the woman is safe. The other thing that we need to take also into account, the role of men. If the men are not really representing more risk to the woman and to their children, I think it's important to engage with them and not wait until they get charged and then provide them with counseling or support. It's important to engage with them separately from the woman. That would make things much easier for the woman, but also for the family and the men. The attitudes of many Muslim and Arab families, like many other families coming from a collectivist background, towards police or law enforcement is different. Most of the time, the experience with law enforcement in many countries of origins is negative. So then, because of that, keep in mind, many women, or maybe even men or families, would be very reluctant to ask to report to the police. So I think that's something really to take, important to take into account when working with Muslim and Arab families, and maybe to start with a bridge. Like, for example, now the Arab Culture Center in Fredericton can be like a bridge between, let's say, the police and this family or this woman, as well as, of course, other mainstream mandated services, including child protection or maybe women's shelter.
So we know that there are a lot of different families, Muslim and Arab families in the Fredericton area, and there's a lot of diversity in terms of their practices and their backgrounds. So what are some of the norms for Muslim women and girls in her culture compared to Canadian culture?
So Muslim women, they enjoy the same political, social, and rights as Canadian women do. But in the Quran, our holy text, it says that women are equal, but it's really important to keep in mind that there's different interpretations of it. Just like with any religion, there's different interpretations of that. But Muslim women have the right to work, they have the right to choice of their own partner, they have the right to, they have the right to do whatever it is that they want, just like with Canadian women. And it's also important, they're political leaders, they're pilots, they're engineers, they're doctors, they hold high office positions, they work within, and they have the right to do that, and they're able to do that.
Sometimes that really surprises people because the stereotype of a Muslim woman is that she's, primarily at home looking after the kids.
Yes, and we see that as society is growing out of that shell. I find that we see women are more outside, especially a Muslim woman. It's the same thing. I find more women are in the field right now working here.
Okay, well, explain to me too. I understand that a Muslim woman doesn't necessarily change her family name when she gets married. Is that true?
Yes. So a lot of Muslim women, they hold their family name very, very highly. So when women get married, they actually keep their last name. They don't change to their spouse's last name. We keep our last names because it's very important to have that inheritance part of it, and a lot of Muslim women really value that because they value their family a lot. Yeah.
Okay, and so then the children in a Muslim family, whose last name do they take?
They take the last name, I believe, of the father.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes they also follow the father's first name too.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Interesting.
The only thing is when you call, and usually use your own name,
Yes.
like Iman Helmi.
Yes.
But to get your memory quick, Iman Fahim, just to get your memory back.
Okay.
You got me,
okay.
like the wife of Mr. Fahim.
Yes.
But and officially her name.
Legally, she has her
Legally.
own name. Oh, that's very interesting. Okay. So then there are also questions about how Muslim women interact with men. So what's permitted in cultures for Muslim and Arab families here in Fredericton?
So Muslim women, they can interact with men just how they want, but it's very important for Muslim women to keep their physical distance between men. So that's a really big part of it, and to bear in mind for service providers is that Muslim women do value that. They value that space between the man and the female, so they can hang out, they can socialize and communicate with their coworkers or whatever it is that are of the opposite sex, as long as there is that physical distance between the two of them. And I find it's not permitted for the Muslim woman to hug or kiss somebody that's not from the immediate family, and they are, again, like that physical space is very important for women because it protects them, and the Quran has taught us like that space is what keeps you safe, what protects you, and it's important to have that. It's a big part of the culture and the religion. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, sometimes I've heard that Muslim women won't be in public without a relative, like a male relative with them. Is that true?
It's true for sure to an extent. It really depends on how the woman grew up. If a woman has been here for many generations, generations past, grew up and was born and raised here, she might feel more comfortable hanging out with male counterparts outside in public and without a relative. But some women that might have just came from a lot of our countries might still have that bit of distance, because back home you wouldn't see that very often, especially in the more religious countries, unless there is that relative. But so for sure it does happen, yes.
So what are some of the differences in gender norms for Muslim and Arab families?
Yes. So Islam guarantees that woman to her privacy, to protect her own body, and and to make sure that they're eliminating any circumstances that might cause any harassment to the woman. And the usual women are expected to be the caretakers of the family. They're expected to be obedient wives, and I think that's something that's seen across many societies. As we know, it's not just Muslim women or Islam in general. Men are expected to be the providers for the family. They're expected to financially improve the family, but the women are expected to be the caretakers, and they're expected to be in the house and clean. And women and girls grow up being more shy and reserved, and they're taught to be like that. They're taught to keep to themselves, and they want them to grow up fast. But whereas of men and boys, like there's more of that connotation about boys will be boys. There's more maybe violence that will be excused because boys will be boys, kind of, yeah. So a lot of there is gender norms for sure, and that differ in cultures, but I think in societies in general, but it's across all societies, and it's very similar to what we see across. Yeah.
Right, and so we see some changes happening, right? Like,
Yes,
so,
yes,
as you
yes.
mentioned earlier, Muslim women are well educated, and some of them are in professions where they have a lot of power and you know, earn a good income. So how does this impact their family lives?
It adds that extra pressure to them now because there's more pressure on the women now to go outside and to also provide for the family on top of having to also like to have a job and hold a job, and then there's just so much on the women now. Their ability has it's good that the ability has expanded, but it just keeps adding to their role as a caretaker. They're still the caretakers of the children, but they also are expected to work now and provide for their family. So it does add a lot of stress and possible like mental health issues, or a feeling of possible isolation, or just burnt out, really, just feeling that constant workload.
Right, and that's not uncommon for many women in Canada now.
No, I agree. Yeah. It's
Okay.
very-
Well, Muslims are relatively new to the Fredericton and the Maritime region. And so can you tell me, Abdel, about some of the holidays or holy days associated with Islam?
Yeah, we have mainly 5 holidays over the Islamic years, which is Hijra years. Ramadan, and Eid al-Fitr, and Eid al-Adha, and celebration of the Prophet Muhammad's birth,
Okay.
and let's say 5?
Yeah.
Anyway, Ramadan, I will go I will mention about the Eid al-Fitr, which is the day after finishing Ramadan.
Okay.
The first celebration day, the feast, the main feast is Eid al-Fitr. So when you break your fast, you're starting Eid al-Fitr, which is celebrating for over 3 days,
Okay.
and that's Eid al-Fitr. Then it comes Eid al-Adha.
Okay.
Eid al-Adha is celebration of the sacrifice, and this is actually followed after al-Hajj.
Okay.
We have Hajj. You're required as a Muslim to have 5 pillars: monotheism, and pray,
Yes.
and charity,
Yes.
and the other thing is the charity. I mentioned the charity, and
And the Hajj.
Hajj. Yes,
And now Hajj
exactly.
is a pilgrimage.
So Hajj is one of the pillars. So you have to go Hajj if you're able to. It is no
And
obligation.
where do you go? Where are you
You go
supposed to go?
to the Mecca, which is
Okay.
the big house of Allah. You have to visit once alive.
Once in your
You're not
lifetime.
required more than this.
Okay.
If you did it once as a prophet, that more than enough. If you don't have even the affordability to go, no obligation.
Okay.
But Allah says, if you're able to, go for it. And the reason that everybody looking to go for there, because it's always, as I told you, you have rewards for this.
Okay.
And the rewards for this is very grateful. You'll be forgiven for any sin you ever done over your lifetime.
If you make a
If you make
pilgrimage.
it.
Okay.
So that's why everybody wants to go there if you're able to. People, they can start saving a lot
Right.
to go this. Anyway, this about Hajj, and after that,
So
the
the feast of the sacrifice comes at the end of the Hajj.
end of the Hajj.
And everybody, no matter whether you go to Mecca or
Or
not,
not, he goes through the events of feast. By the way, there's a day of Arafat.
yes,
We have to as well celebrate internally, and you have to fast on this day if you can do.
okay,
Because everybody stand on the mountain of Arafat, and this is actually one of the main things in the Hajj.
okay,
And you have to go and stand in this day, even if you miss the other things
yes,
in the Hajj Sunnah, which is there's other maybe some 5 things or some to do, but standing in Arafat is the most important.
okay.
If you kill the fly just in that time to stand, and then you can make you can sacrifice for any other thing missing,
Okay.
like going around the Kaaba 7 times and so on. So there's other many things, and that's the main issue of the Hajj. After Hajj is the and that's I think Hajj is
Okay.
I can talk about the other question if you want.
Okay. a lot of people don't understand that there are, there's a lot of diversity amongst Muslims, but there's kind of a general division between Sunni and Shia. And I know that your family is Shia. So can you tell us, are there some differences for Shia Muslims?
Yes. So as Abdel said, that we celebrate all the same things, but there's also the morning of Muharram. Muharram is one of the months of the lunar calendar that we follow.
What do you mean by lunar calendar?
So that's the calendar that we follow, and Ramadan is one of those months that we fast. Yeah, the Canadian society and just Western societies usually follow the solar, follow the sun. So we follow the lunar calendar. So there's 12 months, just the regular, but it changes depending on the moon cycle every year. That's why Ramadan changes every year depending on the moon cycle. Some days some years it's July, some other years it might be January. It follows the moon cycle.
Not always the same day.
It's always moving. And Muharram is one of those months that we also celebrated or mourning for, because that's when the Battle of Karbala happens. Karbala is a city in Iraq where there was fighting between the imams and between the imams. So they celebrate that by going by pilgrim, walking to Karbala.
So another pilgrimage.
Yes. So and those days people observe fasting, they observe charity. It's similar to the pillars of Islam in a way, and we follow that as well. They wear black to show that they're mourning. People from Iran and Iraq walk to Karbala because those are the most dominant Shia countries. So there's a lot of people that walk, and there's charity and food and feast.
Okay. Well, I know that many people are interested in understanding more about fasting for Muslims because it's Ramadan is a month of fasting, and so Abdel, can you explain to me a little bit more about why the reasons behind fasting for Muslims?
The reason is mainly to behave yourself, to make yourself more obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is a time of prayer and worshipping, and make yourself there is no any kind of misconducting. But the feature is to fast from food from dawn to sunrise, from sunrise to dawn. So it looks like for everybody just fasting. No, it is not about fasting. Fasting is part of it, but you have to behave very well. You have to deal with everybody nicely and behave yourself, because this is something you have to learn yourself to be a kind of your way of life. Usually, normally, every time, not necessarily in Ramadan, or in your life. And this kind of teaching how to behave yourself, control yourself, and so on. Again, fasting is something between you and God. What the degree of obedience you're doing. And you can even pray more than you should. We have 5 prayers a day.
5 prayers a day?
5 prayers a day. But this is the must. But the more you pray for Allah, something you can make, this something give you more rewards and more deeds, can save you from anything, because you miss some prayers in your life. So this cover, the more prayer you do, plus this cover whatever missing and something like that. It make you closer to Allah. The more prayer you do, you're more closer to Allah. Anyway, this is regarding the fasting. In the meantime, when you practice the hunger and the thirsty in life, you feel more about the poor people.
So those people who don't have enough to eat and drink.
So it encourages you to do charity. And you don't hesitate to make a charity, even with the little, whatever the little. Because sometimes you give little money. It could be little money for you, or for anybody can see this much of charity, but it could be big money for you because you don't have wealth. All what you have in your pocket maybe $1. But out of this $1 you give 50 cents. It means 50% of what you owe. It's exactly the same with the wealthy guys. When they do 50% of their wealth, millions, they can give 50%, it's going to be much. But he's intentionally giving out of his pocket whatever he has. So anyway, whatever you give, it's good for the society. If everyone give it charity, you will never find a poor person in this earth.
Right.
But nobody follow this.
Okay.
Everybody needy.
Okay. So there's deep spiritual meaning to fasting,
Yeah.
not just physical, but also spiritual and one's relationship with Allah.
Perfection and spiritual.
Okay, great. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
We want to thank all of the public service providers who submitted questions for us. These videos are a response to questions that came directly from public service providers in the Fredericton area.
And thanks for inviting us to provide all the information about our society. And if you need any further information, we would be love to answer the questions. And this is our contact. You can get back to us as the Arabic Cultural Center Association.
The Family Safety Program is an ongoing project, and we will continue working with the service providers and with interested institutions to improve and continue this effort.
Thank
so much.
you. Thank